All right. You ready?
Sure.
All right. So first podcast being done in Resolve Fitness, CrossFit Hawthorne. Today we have Ben Taylor, legend, OG in the CrossFit community. A lot of pedigree, a lot to talk about. He'll be humble about it, but yeah, Ben's been around the block. He's seen it all. He's been around since the early days. He's somebody that has been a mentor to me and somebody I look up to. And we're happy to have you today to, talk some shit and see where it all goes. So
Okay.
why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling us all about where you started? Don't leave anything out.
You mean where I started from my birth?
Yes.
Or-
Day one out the womb was Ben deadlifting 500 pounds.
Okay. Ben Taylor. I was born in Newark, New Jersey. I'll just stick to the sports part. I had pretty active parents. My parents were, recreational athletes, softball leagues and bowling and stuff like that. And, I was always an active kid. When I was very young, I ran track. My parents took me out for the track team because, like, all the kids on my block, I would always, like, race them and give them a head start, and say, okay, I'm going to catch you by the time, and I would do that. Went to, played a bunch of sports when I was a kid, bowling, eventually got into tennis, and tennis and track were my main sports until I got to high school, which what I really wanted to play was football. My parents did not want me to do that because I was not like the biggest kid. Baseball, stuff like that. So I've always been into sports.
Yeah.
I love watching it. That's like one thing my dad and I kind of connected on. We could watch a game together. I can remember when I was like 4 or 5 years old, we would watch football games together. I had no idea what was going on, but, I knew I enjoyed what they were doing. And I would say, bringing it to the health and fitness area, it was when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old, I was playing tennis, playing tournaments, taking lessons and stuff like that. And the main place where we had practices, there was a weight room.
Oh.
And this guy was a bodybuilder in there. And I just thought this guy was like crazy looking, right? I'm just like, what, how is he doing that, And he's like, hey, kid, like, I see you always looking in the door and the window. So why not come in and try some stuff? And, he let me, and he would show me, just movements like from a very, I was like 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
And ever since then, that was just like part of what I did with sports, right? I was never like a lot of guys go to the gym and they, see some, their bench press go up or something, and they get muscles in their shirt, and that's what they do. But for me, it was always connected to sports. Like, I'm doing this to get better at sports. So then, as time moved on, went to college, played football and track in college. And then after that, when there was, the Dallas Cowboys weren't knocking on my door, it's kind of lost, right? I'm like, okay, now what do I do?
Well, it's their loss, not.
Yeah, it really was, man. So, it was just like going to the gym, doing sets and reps of bench. And, it was just like kind of some means to an end, but it was like boring. I'm like, what am I getting out of this? So it was very hard to keep dedicated. And I would have bouts of like doing it and not doing it and being serious and like less serious. And then my girlfriend at the time found Gorilla Fitness, CrossFit, or I don't know what was first, but Gorilla Fitness happened to be the first mover in the space in the area. And she joined and she said, you would love this. I know you would. And I went and did a trial class, and that was it. So I was like, oh, this smashes together sports and fitness, So since then, I've been doing it. The only thing that pulled me from it would be like, life issues that just didn't have the time or something like that. But since it had to be, the first games had happened, so it was somewhere between the first games and like the second year of the games.
So like 08 to
Yeah, it
10?
was like 08 or something like that.
Something like. How old were you when you first walked into a CrossFit gym?
Late 30s.
Okay.
Late 30s. So I was maybe almost, 38. I was 38.
And
so I was already old,
easy with that
Right.
word. Easy.
But it was cool. Those days were just like, no one knew what they were doing really.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm always jealous of you that you got to see it at that stage.
Yeah, it's so it was a lot of throwing mud against the wall,
See what's stuck.
see what stuck. A lot of people excited about it, a lot of bad technique. I go back and look at videos of just like me doing a box jump. It looks crazy. Doing a snatch looks crazy. I was doing it like a football player.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but it was cool, man. And in the space, I feel like where, because it was new, a lot of people could connect that wouldn't normally connect at all through actually the CrossFit.com website, because the discussion board was pretty active at the time.
Right.
And Instagram wasn't really around then, but Facebook was a big thing. So, I like the competing aspect of it, but I was, and we'll maybe touch on this, but like, CrossFit is very endurance based, not my wheelhouse.
No.
Right. I'm not the mile runner. I'm the sprinter.
What'd you run in track? Was it the 4?
No,
Oh, that's even too aerobic for you?
absolutely. That's an
200?
entirely different animal. So in indoor, I ran the 60 and
wow.
the 100, and every now and again I run the 200.
Okay. And that's pushing it.
And that's pushing it. In high school, they would make you run the 400,
Sure.
but I would, every time I ran it, I would almost die. So, as a matter of fact, if I don't know, if people like watch the Olympic Games, but you would see guys who ran the 100, guys and gals ran the 100, they might run the 200, right? You would see some folks who ran the 200 might run the 400.
Yeah.
What you will never ever see is someone who ran the 100 run the 400.
Yeah, you sent me an Instagram post about that
Right.
the other day, and you were like, basically, this is the same race for
Yeah.
this athlete
Right, so-
across all of them.
Right. So at the other end of the spectrum, it was one, and she's not the only one that's ever done this, but
Right.
there was an athlete that ran the 1500, the 5K, the 10K, and the marathon, and she medaled in 3 of those events.
Wow.
Because essentially, those are all the same race, different strategy, and the only reason more people don't do it is just because of the timing thing. Like, I didn't recover from the last race, and I have a next race.
Right.
But those are all the same from the aspect of that talent, that energy system that you're using to be good at those races. It's the same. The 100 and the 400, totally different.
Right.
It's totally different.
I ran track, I agree.
So-
I did the 800, and
Okay.
my daughter also did 800.
Yeah, that's a death race. Like the 800, the 400 and the 800 are the hardest races, if
Right.
you ask me. So anyway, being older, probably kind of, it's still not being my realm. I still loved it. So very quickly I went to the kind of, how do you get better at this? So I started like writing stuff and putting it on Facebook, and people who were good read it. And they would contact me. That wasn't a thing then.
Right.
Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And like some of this I'm going to lose kind of how it happened, but just started talking to people. And I think when you say stuff, people say, oh, I like what you said. Can you say more of that? And
Right.
can you talk to me about this? And just one thing led to another. And
What were you basing your methodology out of at the beginning? When you were looking at how to get better, what were you pulling from? What was inspiring you? Was it all journal entries and then your interpretation of it? Was it pulling from other sports and what you knew?
it was definitely pulling from what I knew
Okay.
and trying to apply it to CrossFit.
Okay.
Because very early on, you knew that there was at least a difference in degree of what the average person coming into a CrossFit gym should be doing and looking at, from their fitness and what was required at a competition level.
Right.
Right. So there are things that I think are accessible to anyone and they can do it, but it's like, is it necessary? If you're just coming in and you're looking just to improve your fitness because you just want to get healthier, you probably don't need to worry about things like how many sets and reps am I doing of this weight and that weight, and I need to time my periodization schedule with this and that.
Right.
It's just not necessary. But I would say is those things are very helpful if you are competing in a sport, you have a season, you know when you have to be in peak condition, versus other times a year where, like, if I don't know, if the event is I have to do, my 1 rep max clean and jerk, what does it matter, like what I did in practice?
Right.
It matters on game day.
Right.
So I'm in the finance world as like a profession, but like just for fun, I would, take classes on, like I got my track and field certification, you know what I mean? And like weightlifting certification. And I was doing that before CrossFit.
Okay.
Or before my then girlfriend introduced me to CrossFit, which is why she knew this is right up your alley. Cause and I would do stuff because my kids were running track and I wanted to help them. And, I got fitness certifications, like training certifications, just because I liked it and I wanted like a real education on this stuff instead of just reading like Muscle and Fitness magazine or something like that. And, so I'm a nerd in that way. But I forgot where I was going. Okay, so I would pull from that. I would pull from my experience as an athlete, just stuff I picked up over time, stuff I just read because of the nerd thing, stuff I studied because of that, stuff I read in the journal, and just so what the landscape was, and I tried to apply that to getting better at the competition level with CrossFit.
Right.
And so I just started putting it out there. And then, a couple of athletes, asked me to work with them.
Is that how Black Star was born?
That is how Black Star was born.
All right. So why don't you, for everybody who wasn't around back then, tell them what Black Star was and what it stood for. And
So again, because it was a while ago, I'm losing some of like
It's
the
all right.
order of things. But even at the gym that I was at, people in the gym for local competitions wanted to get better, and they kind of knew I was doing this with athletes kind of like at the games level, and so the owner of Gorilla Fitness, you don't mind me saying that?
No.
Okay, right. So, right.
It's history. History is history.
Yeah, I don't want to name those guys, but Gorilla Fitness, which I think they run a great facility, asked me to do a competitors class, right? So I was just trying to figure out how to. This is not my job, right? This is not my job. How do I justify all this time I'm putting into this? That's really what it was.
right.
So I'm already programming for some of the better athletes in the space. I'm doing this class, and I have more to say about how I think this should be done. And I want to justify my time. Let me like kind of do this in a organized manner, maybe charge some people, and that's how it was born.
Those
right?
spreadsheets aren't made for free.
Right. So I put it was like I put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
And it was just meeting this level of like this doesn't make sense unless I kind of like monetize it.
Sure.
I'm gonna jump ahead. Very quickly, I realized that it's not like a part-time thing. You have to.
Oh, it's
Unless-
a lot of time.
Yeah, unless you were going to do it full time and people were moving that way, it's a lot of work. But for that period of time, I just try to put my thoughts on this website. If you want programming, here's the charge. And I put like my philosophical approach to what I think this is and how I think it should be approached. and that was, and what I also put on the site was like a generic program. If you're, if you don't want to pay me, here's something kind of generically that you can do to get ready for the Open, get ready for regionals, whatever like that. So that's how it happened.
Okay. Where'd you come up with the name Black Star, out of curiosity?
I don't know. I needed something. You know what I think it is? Like I found a black star like on the internet that was like, oh, that's a good logo. I'll just call it Black Star and use that.
All right.
And then I actually had a guy like design a better logo
Sure,
for me.
sure.
Again, all of this is like, it's not planned. It's just like what comes up, and
Hey,
that's just what I did. So,
That's the way the best things work,
Yeah,
is when they kind of
right.
just organically all happen.
right. And also like because it was just like I downloaded like a template for the website, and it was black and yellow. And all right, that's fine. I'll do that.
How many years was it?
It wasn't that
going on?
long. It was. I have to think. Maybe just like a 3-year period.
Yeah.
Where I did that. Maybe a 4-year period, something like that. Because then again, one of those life things came into play. I
Sure.
had my daughter. She
More
was-
important than
Right,
training
right.
games athletes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Again, where it was going, it was, I see where this is going, is becoming very, not that I wasn't professional, but it was like there are certain things you needed
Right.
that I was not going to get or acquire. I was doing it out of a love and a passion for it. It wasn't paying my bills. You know what I mean? So,
Also, at the time, there really wasn't much money in it. I mean, there's
No.
still not that much money in it,
Right.
but even then, we're talking, what, 11, 12, maybe,
Right.
if that. There's nothing in the sport at that
right.
time.
So, so I didn't have a gym, and unless you had a gym, and maybe I'll use this guy's name, but I liken when I came into it and kind of the level I was at the time with a Ben Bergeron, right? Who his advantage was he had a gym,
Right.
and he had athletes come in there, and I sort of used him like he has no idea. We met once in life, right? But I see where he's going. I'm never going to do that.
Right.
I'm just going to do it for the love of it, and I'll leave it there. You know what I mean? And that was enough for me. So
Yeah, I mean, if you had the means for everything and you got in on the ground floor, you hit the ground running, then
Yeah.
you made a name for yourself, because there wasn't many people doing it. So
Yeah.
you just had to get in at the right time and be prepared for it and not totally mess it up.
right. So and then I'll say this to this day. Like I think I was on. I think how I program is how you should program.
Right.
Still to this day, and I think what I see, and I can't, I don't know every programmer, but what I see a lot of people doing at that level is, there's a lot of wasted effort,
Right.
right? And if you have the right athlete and the right circumstances for that athlete, because that's another level, you have to be full time at it. You can't be trying to do all that and then trying to run a gym and then trying to.
We've had many conversations about
Like,
that.
It's just what it is.
How to move the needle when
Yeah.
it's, it's
Yes.
tough.
So-
even on the masters level, you would say, what are those guys
I would
putting in?
100% say that any master, and I pay attention to the men more than the women, but you're full time.
Right.
You have some weird circumstance with your life. You're retired, or you're a stay-at-home parent, or something like that, where you're able to work out twice a day and recover in between.
Right. Or how you say you own an affiliate, but you're not running the affiliate.
You own an affiliate, which is like, that's the most common one, is you own an affiliate, but you don't actually, you're not leading classes all the time.
You're not
and
doing
stuff
what
like
I'm
that.
doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just
Just not happening.
so, if you if you want to be there, this is what it required.
Right. There's no way around it at this point.
There's no way around.
So you said you believe the way you program is the way that should be programmed. And I'm sure that's from a holistic standpoint, even from athletes who don't aspire to be games athletes and the way up, right?
I would say, because I mostly concentrated on programming for people who wanted to do it as a sport,
Right.
not for people who were just looking for general health.
Right.
So I would say there would, for me, like, a program for like kind of two different tiers. hey, I want to get ready for this competition that's in my area, and I want to have bragging rights and go out for a beer after. And that's still a different level than the folks who are just doing it, just for health.
Right.
Right.
It requires a little bit more.
It absolutely does. If you're going to go to a weekend competition and there's 6 events, that's a substantial shock to your system.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
You have to prepare for that. And you can't do it over like a 2-week period of time, And then there's, there's another level where you're competing with everyone in the world who's doing this. And then that's a whole separate animal.
Right.
So, I felt I'd have a template written down places and mostly now in my head about how you need to do those 2 things for what you're going to see.
And how much of that derived from the What is Fitness article by Greg Glassman?
So that's a tricky question.
Answer it as best as you can.
Right. It's very tricky. I would say the way events are programmed, it is very hard to stick to what I think is in that article.
Okay.
And if we're going there,
All right. So before we go there, because I know where you're going to head, but let's just say the tests were, let's disregard what the tests have become, and let's look at the information in the article. What I'm essentially getting at is, you believe that builds a well-rounded fitness individual. And before we started recording, you were talking about the opening sentence with the reference between the decathlete and the Ironman runner. So why don't you go on about your interpretation of that? Because we spent a whole 2 or 3 hour conversation about this a few weeks ago over coffee.
Right.
And then you made me go down a rabbit hole to where I've read that article inside and out and just have vomited on whiteboards and things like that. So why don't you go into that?
Okay. So
Can
I figured-
can I ask a question?
sure.
When was the article written?
2002.
Okay, so that was like the basis of what Greg Glassman wanted to do with CrossFit, like his reasoning for all of it. And
Well,
just to give a little background, because like the average person, I think,
Sure.
would never.
Okay.
That's a
I
good
know
point.
I would say the What is Fitness article was written by Greg Glassman as this is CrossFit.
Okay, yeah.
He's given a definition of what he thinks fitness is. And he didn't say this is what I think it is. This is what he used CrossFit at. And this is our pursuit and how we approach gaining that fitness is essentially the article.
Okay.
The 10 general skills.
Right.
Endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility,
Which-
power, speed, coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy.
Right. Which he'll tell you, he'll admit that, like, he didn't come up with that list. He Dynamax, I think the CEO of Dynamax, Med Balls,
Yeah.
is the one who originally. Even that list of 10, I mean, why not 12? Why not 8? That's kind of beside the point. It's a good list.
Yeah.
It's pretty complete. It's not because Greg said it. It's
Right.
because it stands on its own. Come up with a better list,
Yeah.
right? If you do, bring it in. But I think that's a pretty good list. And CrossFit is saying this is what we believe. And then it goes to the energy systems, right?
Phosphogenic, glycolytic, and oxidative.
Right. I don't
Use
know
of
if
all
the
three.
camera picks that up. But
It's
right.
kind of in it, but yeah.
So there's like, that first energy system, the phosphagen energy system is very short, 0 to 15 seconds. You're going to, a lot of your power, your 100-meter sprint, your
1 rep max.
1 rep max, your high jump, your pole vault, your shot put, your softball throw, right? It's all in there. All the way to the oxidative, which is, your endurance type events or anything you're doing over a long period of time. Like whether you're just doing a row, for 5,000 meters, or you're doing clean and jerks and runs and more clean and jerks and runs, still endurance.
Right.
Okay. So what I would say is I was definitely influenced by the article as this, I like this definition of fitness. That's what attracted me to CrossFit. I like the way they express fitness. This is how we express fitness through the Olympic lifts and other lifts, through, you know, metabolic conditioning, through, you know, basic gymnastics, you know, getting upside down, pulling yourself, your body weight up on a bar or up a rope or something like that. I'm like, oh, this is great, right? I'll give you a practical example of, and here's the thing. Actually, I have something. Can I?
You can.
All right.
Uh-oh. Spreadsheets.
They're infamous.
So in particular with I think the 10 general physical skills are kind of self-explanatory, and the emphasis is on like no one of those is more important than the other.
Correct.
It's important to have skills across all of them. Well, the same thing with the energy systems, right? And he says,
I know exactly where you're going with
all right,
this.
so favoring one or two to the exclusion of the others and not recognizing the impact of excessive training in the oxidative pathway are arguably, can't speak, two of the most common faults in fitness training. I took that to heart.
I got a little synopsis of that right there. Anything over 2 minutes is endurance training. Too much bias and oxidative equals imbalance in fitness.
That's exactly right. That's
Pulled
exactly
that right from the article. That's
Right.
not my words. That's just paraphrase.
That's exactly right. And I want to relate it personally, right? So I think it's great to exercise endurance. And now I'm addressing the person who's just interested in general fitness, okay? Because that's going to lower your blood pressure and have your heart be stronger, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And help keep your weight down and things like that. But it's not going to help you when you fall and trip on the curb walking up to your house, right?
Right.
You need some explosive power to just tuck and roll or get your hands in front of you, you know? I dropped my mother off in front of her house, who's 80. And I just told you how my parents were athletes, right? And she walked up the street, and all of a sudden, just off of a twig or something, she tripped. And she could not get her hands in front of her. So thank God she was okay, but all the endurance in the world was not going to help her in that situation.
Right.
That's equally as important, okay? I don't know if the competitions, actually, I'll take that back. I do know.
I was going to say, you do know.
There is a overemphasis on the endurance part of the sport and not enough on those first two pathways. So as a programmer, you're programming to what the sport is going to give you. So really, like I always said, this is an endurance sport. It just happens to have barbells in it, you know, where it's not too much unlike the Ironman, except we have barbells. I think if you are using that as the model, it doesn't meet the standard of the What is Fitness article. Because the other implication is like all of these things are equally important. If we're giving up points, we're going to give as many points to the phosphagen system, as many points to the glycolytic system, and as many points to the, right?
Yeah.
We're going to give as many points. And here's the other thing. What you realize is some of those 10 physical skills are best expressed in one of those energy systems more so than the other.
Yeah.
So if you're favoring one, which Glassman just said, don't do that.
Right.
You're also shortchanging the 10 physical skills. You're emphasizing some more than others. Like some of the gymnastics things that, you know, happen in competitions. If you look at a normal just gymnastics routine, it's like 60 to 90 seconds.
Right.
Past that, you're putting yourself in jeopardy of injury. So I think, and I see that right from the beginning, it kind of deviated from the What is Fitness article. Like, these competitions aren't really testing fitness as it's laid out in that document.
I mean, I think you can even make the argument that most affiliates don't program the way that What is Fitness is.
I think that's the trickle down.
Yeah.
Is that now over time, there was a time there was no game. So people were coming into CrossFit by word of mouth, by the website,
Right.
the games. And you just recently you see some articles have been written because, something happened about what's the purpose of the games? What was the original purpose of the games? Well, the purpose of the games was to promote CrossFit, the methodology, because the marketing budget wasn't great. Oh, this is a great way to promote the methodology.
Yeah.
You say it.
Methodology?
Yes.
We got you. Don't worry.
I
Ben.
have a question. So was the early games, like back in California and stuff like that, were they doing it right? Were they programming from the get-go
Now,
correctly?
if that's the template you're using, if you're using the What is Fitness article as a template, no, it's never been, ever. So trickle down. Now, people were doing competitions in their backyard before the games, which is why, I don't know if you remember this, but people were calling, hey, we're doing a CrossFit competition here in our parking lot, and CrossFit would come down hard on them, say you can't use our name.
Oh, yeah, I knew that
but
was
people
a
were
serious
doing
thing.
it, right? So people were doing it, but I think, hey, here are the big dogs. This is what they say this should look like. We'll just do it.
Yeah.
And what I think is what happened was the programmer of all these events just says, hey, this is what I think I like, and it's that person's version of whatever it is. It has no standards. It's what I feel like testing you on this time.
Okay.
So it's hard it's a moving target at all times,
Right.
So the best you can do is get trends of, hey, you're going to have some in this domain and you're going to hit these movements and stuff like that. And it makes it a real challenge for the programmer who's trying to train someone to prepare for something that it has so many moving parts.
Right.
Right. I would say at the affiliate level, but you don't have to be confined by that. You can really build that person that is equally as strong as they are enduring, because I think that's what matters more in life. That is, I think Greg was right on the money when he said that. You know what I mean? But from a sports aspect, no.
Right.
No, you have to be. I always say, like, I'll take a big miler, a guy who that's their event. They run the mile, but they're a big guy, so they're probably not going to do great in the mile versus the regular guys.
Sure.
And then I just pound them with weights, and I wouldn't take a 100-meter guy and try to make him a CrossFitter. You're going to fail.
Why?
That's just not how your body is built. You're not going to get rewarded for your talent.
Now, is that solely through training, or do you think there is a certain body type and a certain physiology that excels better than others?
Absolutely. Which is why you don't get the 100-meter guy running the 400 meters.
Gotcha.
Right? You don't get the 100-meter guy running like the gold medalist for Team USA on the women's side in the 200 meters. Like at the end, their interview, she's doing all these interviews, and like, what's the furthest you'll run? She's like, a mile, and that's crazy. Like,
Right.
It's so those events are you're greasing your wheel, like you're going to double down on what you're good at.
Sure.
Right. And you know that very quickly. It's I sent you a video.
Which one? The falling one?
Falling one.
This gym that was training a bunch of older
no,
people
no,
to fall.
no,
Oh, that was the most recent one.
Okay, so I'll go back and tell my own story. In college, we had these tests.
Oh, I remember. Actually, I wrote that down to talk about your
Okay.
football test. Yeah.
Right. So every year we would have all these tests. It looked like a football combine, right? And I've forgotten half of them, but There was like a vertical jump, and there was a bench press test, and like 40-meter dash, and other stuff, right? You know, all testing agility tests, all testing what I feel like are essential to the sport, right? And a couple of years we had it where other teams in the conference like adopted the same test, and it was like this big kind of mini CrossFit games, right? Like,
Okay.
but with those tests. But one of the tests was I think it's called the Cooper test. Basically, it's a 12-minute run, and you have to get a certain distance in that 12 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So and it would be based on your position. The bigger guys didn't have to run as far, obviously, but the smaller guys, you know, I played defensive back. We had to get just shy of 2 miles, or I mean, it's 2 miles. So I think it was 3,000 meters.
That's just under.
Just under, right?
Yeah,
So
1,600 in a mile.
right. So I think we had to get about 3,000 meters or even more than that in that 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So that's a decent clip. And every year I would win like every event. You know, every event. And there was one year where I couldn't even complete it. Like the 12-minute run.
Oh, wow.
And that tore me up like all the time, because I'm just like, you know, and I'm like, I know this is dumb, because this is like, what am I going to run for 12 minutes? Like a football play is 7 seconds.
Right.
That's true, yeah.
And 30 seconds of rest till the next play. And it's a series of those things. And you get to sit down while the offense goes out.
Now, why do you think you couldn't complete it that year?
Pick
That's
your
just
mic up
not-
a little, Deb.
That's just, it's like I said, that's not my physiology.
Okay.
That's not what I'm built for. And I trained for that, because I had a bet with my coach at the time that matter of fact, I told him I'm going to run it in combat boots. That's what I said. Because he challenged me. He was like, Ben Taylor, because he knew. And then I'm like, dude, but I'm like pro level at every other thing.
Yeah.
I'm bench pressing more than your lineman. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Between me coming maybe like 100 meters short of making that run, it's like nonsensical, right? Okay. Recently, I met up with a bunch of buddies of mine that went to college with me, had that same test, and we were talking about it. And then they reminded them, like, oh, all the guys that were actually good on the team didn't complete the run. But some of the bench warmers, they did. And it's really because, like, they weren't built for football as much as we were. They were more built for a 12-minute run, and it's just what it is. I can get better at a 12-minute run, but I'm never going to beat the guy that's built for it. It's just like there are some guys who are going to lift all the weights in the world. You're still not going to mess with me. You're just not.
Okay.
You're not built for this.
So would you say that the sport of CrossFit could be potentially made up of a bunch of people that are not built for the true test of what is fitness? They've adapted it?
I won't say that. So here's what I would say. I think you have the people who are doing well today are the people who are more enduring. So the people who are successful, you know, I did this. So I looked up, you know, a bunch of numbers of the best in the 5K.
Of course you did.
Right? Who are the best people in the 5K? Who are the best people at a snatch? That's the measurement I use. Okay. And the best people in the sport of CrossFit are much closer. The gap is much more narrow on the 5K side than it is on the how much can you snatch side.
Okay.
Okay. So CrossFit, what is fitness said, suggests that you should be equally distanced from those two. We're not saying you're going to be the best snatcher and the best 5K guy, but you should be about 80%. I'm making up a number.
Okay.
80% on either end of that. And I think the test filters for people who are much more enduring than they are explosive and strong. So That's just what it tests. So if you were to start from scratch, you would have people who are, hey, this is the guy who won the CrossFit Games. That guy, that imaginary guy would be stronger, more agile, more powerful. He's probably not going to be as enduring.
Gotcha.
Right? So today's CrossFitter will outrun that guy in a 5-mile run, but he's probably not going to outlift him. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the imaginary guy that I'm making up is more fit by the what is fitness definition of fitness. That's just what I think. If you were to change the competition right now today, you would need to, those guys would need to kind of like filter out.
Right.
I think you would all of a sudden see new people
Sure.
pop up, but it would take some time for that, because the sport, like, oh, I'm doing well in this, I'll keep doing it.
Right.
And then the people who don't do as well, they kind of fall out anyway. So, and I'm not saying like these people aren't fit. They just aren't as fit as they should be according to that definition. That's what I was saying.
Does anybody come to mind that you've come across over the years that might have fit that definition a little bit better, but never quite made it to the height of acknowledgement?
I wouldn't want to like say names, because one is I don't know exactly how that would look. So I can't say. It's like I said, if I think almost anyone who's doing well is pretty enduring. I'm more apt to say there's people that you just have no idea who they are.
Okay.
They're way down the list, you know, maybe not way down the list, but they just aren't as enduring. They're not going to do as well as at a 20-minute AMRAP. But if you were to put them in an agility test or, you know, a Olympic lifting thing or a high jump, if for whatever reason we had a high jump, we had a softball throw.
I remember that. Yeah.
Poo-pooed. I'm like, that was the only thing that Greg Glassman ever programmed, by the way.
The softball throw?
Was the softball throw.
Ah,
That's a legitimate test of fitness. It is an incomplete test of fitness. You need all the other things to round it, right? Okay, but that's as good as anything else. I think the landscape would be different. And here's the other, and I just thought about this, like, well, not this moment, but recently, is this notion that the games are not what you would do in the affiliate. Well, that was a mistake by CrossFit that they ever allowed that to happen.
Okay.
It really should have been, hey, we're absolutely testing what we put in that article, and it's really just a matter of degree. Not that the games athletes are doing something totally different than what's happening in the affiliate. That just doesn't make sense to me. Why would you be promoting something that you're actually not doing?
Right. Do you think .com does a good job of programming along the guidelines of what is fitness?
So I'll be honest with you. I stopped like going to .com a long time ago.
Okay.
But back in the days when the website looked crazy,
right?
Like, it was like an orange. I don't know what it was, but it was cool. I hate it when they updated it because I'm like, this is so retro. I think it really looked like what you would imagine training for the average person, you know, what would look like from what they told you in the What is Fitness article, and then I'm going to butcher the name of the article, but it was like the theoretical
development of programming.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It looked very much like that. I think over time, what you saw creep in to even the .com programming is more and more Metcons.
Right. There's a line that says most of our training should be interval-based training.
Right. Which, you know, I guess you could argue that a Metcon can be, because you get tired. Like if I'm doing Fran, man, I'm tired after those 21s, man. You know, I have to rest a minute. You know,
no, but it's different. I think it's different.
Yeah, though. It is different. Like a planned
rest or worked in rest, you know.
Yes.
Like today we had, you had to earn your rest 4-minute intervals. There should have been some time.
Listen, you need recovery, so you can go harder, and then you need another recovery. And, I mean, it's a method to
Well, that's
that
where
madness.
fitness lies.
Right, exactly.
You don't get better. You taught me this. You don't get better by getting worse each round.
That's exactly right. And I think what I've seen in a lot of affiliates, right? I mean, I'm not in every affiliate. I've been around long enough to see a lot of stuff. If you're in that endurance pathway a lot, for a regular person, you need like sometimes 48 hours to recover. Well,
Sure.
your clients are coming back the next day.
You have
they
no control
recovered?
over that.
Yeah.
None.
So to have these things back to back to back to back, I mean, it's no wonder like some of the clients, they get like, hey, I'm not making progress. Well, I'm beating you to death.
Right.
It's like, hey, and there are the clients that come in, and if you were to ever say, hey, all we're doing today is rope climb progressions. You mean I'm not going to sweat? Like,
Yeah. They think they have to do a chipper every time they come
every
in.
single time. But I would say, in my opinion, the games had a lot to do with that. That is the advertisement. I want to come in here and beat myself to death. And the professional has to tell you, hey, that's not how you progress.
Right.
And it's not what we're doing here.
I mean,
We're developing fitness. We're not trying to make you a Metcon monster.
Well, I would just say, do you think the Metcon symbolizes the test of the week or of the month rather than the training? Or can a Metcon still be training?
Absolutely. I think it's one tool in the tool bag.
Right.
It is not the whole tool bag. I just, we're going back and forth between the competition and the affiliate. What I think,
but I
you should
think
be
it's
doing
all
as
on
an
the
affiliate.
same level. At some point, I think the intensity or what you're asking of the individual should increase. But to your point earlier, I think the foundation of it all should be the same.
That's what I think as well.
Yeah.
That's what I think as well. I think you should, if you set up a test, now I'm talking about competition, where you're emphasizing and you're letting the audience know, we are testing balance. Let me read the list. Right? So in this event, we're testing coordination, we're testing power and flexibility, whatever it is, right? So you've made up these movements and these reps and everything, and it's going to be in the glycolytic pathway. That's this test. Why can't you just do that? That, like, here's the event, here's what we're testing.
You know why? I don't think most people know what they're doing.
What a great way to promote your training and explain to them at every point on ESPN,
Right.
this is what we're doing. You're educating the public every single time. You're giving the level 1 away for free every single time.
Right.
Like I don't know what they're talking about on some of these things. I mean, you can't fill that in.
Right.
It's like, and by the time I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm interested in this. I'm going to go to CrossFit.com, find my local affiliate, go in there.
It's just like you ever go to a class and you got a coach who's, showing off and all these big words and anterior and posterior, and they're teaching you how to do an air squat in this technical way that your average person does not have a clue. And there's some CrossFit training videos that depict this where they make that joke where you can't be speaking Latin to people when they know English. Say, send your hips back and down like
Right.
you're sitting to a chair, hands high, chest. They don't care what plane they're moving in or what this is called. It needs to resonate.
Right.
And that's
Now, what I would say is that the 10 general physical skills, I think the layperson almost intuitively
can understand that.
can understand that.
Absolutely.
With the energy systems, maybe not. So don't use those words to say, hey, this is a test that we're doing in this time domain, because they lie well on time domains, right?
Yeah.
This is the test we're doing in this time domain. Here's the physical skills where
They could literally just say short, medium, and long.
they could
And
literally
that
just
sums it
say
up.
short, medium, or long.
That today is a short workout that is focusing on power and agility.
Oh my goodness. You've sold CrossFit,
That's it.
right? And we're doing this at the games level. And when the person comes in and you have your on ramp and you repeat this and you give them maybe a little bit more detail,
Right.
they're like, man, I would never go anyplace else.
Right.
I'm here. I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm developing. I know the kind of life I can live. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So your original question was the what is fitness article versus like the competition. Like, so no,
Right.
I'm that programming that I'm putting out for like or used to, for an athlete is going to focus on what I think the programming of the test is going to give me, which is not a complete, if we're using this as the definition of fitness, is not that definition.
Yep.
It's more enduring. It emphasizes some skills more than others.
So is the well tainted? Is there no coming back from this? As it is what it is?
Ooh. Man, I don't know, man. I really don't, because I really don't. Can we talk about what happened?
Whatever you're
right.
comfortable with.
We had a horrible accident at a CrossFit competition, right? And these are supposed to be some of the best athletes and things like that. So in the wake of that, what you can see kind of the discourses online is you have one side of the fence where they're looking for answers and they want to make some changes immediately with some of the people involved with organizing these events, and other folks who are, let's wait and see. Let's keep the status quo. Let's not point fingers. And it's really divided on like, and what I can see is that, you know, I think these things are related. I think that accident had much less of a chance of happening. Nothing can be prevented, right? If there were some guardrails on how these events are programmed. And to me, this is a natural guardrail. You don't need to up the ante all the time to test fitness. The decathlon has not changed in more than 100 years. The people just got better at doing it.
Right.
But those events are simple. You throw a ball, you throw a javelin, you jump over some stuff, you run fast. Let's see how good we can get at those things. I mean, one of the things that CrossFit talks about is virtuosity before intensity, right? Is that not right?
That I'm not sure of.
Okay.
I'm
You're
familiar a little bit.
okay. Get good at the simple things before you increase your intensity.
Well, yeah, that sounds about right.
Right.
Yeah.
So even with the athletes that we're saying are the best of our community, you don't have to increase the intensity all the time. Just let's see how well they can do it. If I got out and I tried to do a ballet, I'm not going to look like Baryshnikov, but Baryshnikov, oh my God, have you ever seen, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We should be producing those type of athletes that are the Baryshnikov of what, I don't know if people know who Baryshnikov is, but
Well, I know of him because of you.
right. He performs his art beautifully.
Right.
That's what I want to see. I don't want to see you having these guys on ring muscle ups and then putting a weight on their back. I don't need to see that.
Yeah.
We've had people slip on things all the time. Now you have a weight on you. I don't need to see you put folks in a Peloton, a lot of bikes together, people riding bikes, right? Who have not really done this. And they don't know how to handle that close proximity. Somebody's bound to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
A 3-hour event in the hot sun that you give military personnel with no water, no safety people, to surprise them with no announcement and say, go run, go into the ocean, the Pacific Ocean at the Santa Monica Pier, and you had no other warning. It's not necessary, man. Come on, man.
I mean, this is less than those, but I even remember a few years back with the rope climb thing where they weren't cutting the ropes at the bottom. And who was that?
Exactly.
Panchik that broke his ankle?
Broke his ankle.
and then he was out. So
Yeah.
And then to say that without any parameters, I'm just making up these workouts because I feel like they're, I like them. Back in the day when Rich Froning was killing it, he was killing everybody in all the workouts, and then met that rope and fell from the rope
right.
onto the concrete with just, a less of an inch rubber mat.
Yeah, there were no crash pads that year.
No crash pads. And your response is, we can't make him the fittest person. We have to make up a rule on the spot that because he didn't climb the rope, we can't let him win. That's why he didn't win. It wasn't that he wasn't leading in points. It's that they, on the spot, made it so that he didn't complete the rope climb, he can't win. On the way home, because I was at that event, on the way home, I ran into some people who were higher ups. Hey, how's it going? We just came from the CrossFit Games. And, well, how'd you like it? And I said, oh, I loved it. It was a great weekend. I've never seen so many fit people together in one place, and blah, blah, blah. It was wonderful. The only thing I didn't like was there were no mats on the rope climb. And the response was from two. Now, this is two separate instances where I met two different people on that journey home. Said essentially the same thing. And I'm going to smush them together. But, hey, you didn't have to climb it. You're the organizer. You should keep the athletes as safe as possible. And does it have to be 20 feet? And so I just think it's a mindset that I don't know that it's appropriate for sport, for these competitions. It might be appropriate for CrossFit is famous for preparing police officers and military personnel, and where you really, it's life and death. But playing a game, man, it shouldn't be life or death. It shouldn't be catastrophic injury versus, whatever. Burpees and pull-ups really fast. That's pretty good. You can test the fittest with more parameters than what's going on. So I feel like the fact that the programmers don't want any restraints, they want to be creative, they want to give a spectacle, they lose what you're really testing. And then it infiltrates the community, and like you have the bully. I don't know what you call it, but you have the platform, right? So you have so much influence over the community that there are plenty of people that know this. They take the level ones, they've read that article, and they can recite it to you, and then immediately not apply it to their training, or if there's ever a test. If you ever put these two things together, they do not match up. They just don't. So I don't know if you can put like the genie back in the bottle. I just don't. I think in your affiliate, that's the one thing that's been consistent about CrossFit. You can do what you want. You can train how you want. You can train from that article someone who is well-rounded at fitness and they're prepared for life. When they get into their old age, their heart is in great condition. They don't have high blood pressure, right? And if they ever fall, they can tuck and roll. They don't break a hip. That's who you're trying to build. That's what I think.
I was thinking of when you were saying something before, how like the reputation, I think you're almost going to be like, we could become bullies or something, or that CrossFit has gotten a reputation kind of.
Right.
And because I've been doing admin work where I deal with a lot of people who are coming into CrossFit for the first time and they have no history and never have done it, but they're like, I saw this on ESPN or whatever. It's very interesting because I've had many instances where people sign up to take a class and then in the day or two before they take it, something happens.
Okay.
And I think they talk about it. I've heard of actually this a few times, did get this response from when I called or text and said, hey, we never saw you at the class you paid for. Yeah, I spoke to my husband and he said, are you crazy? You'll never do that. And I saw, you're never going to be able to do these things. And, or something even more broad, like CrossFit is definitely not something that the average person can do. And it's gotten such a bad reputation. I think a lot of it is from people looking and watching, maybe the documentaries or ESPN, and then deciding, yeah, I can't do that.
So, and I think I think that's a legitimate concern, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that it's exactly true, because for the most part, in the affiliates, it may not be what this is, but they're not training games athletes, right? So I just think it's a lost opportunity. Like, it's a disconnect between what your main marketing source is, and then you have to almost like deprogram people to say, no, we're not really training for that. We're training for this, and we're going to do something different. It's like, what you're giving the affiliate an extra burden that they should not have.
Yeah.
It really should be, hey, we're just doing it at this level, and we train very similarly to what you would do in the affiliate, except you just aren't doing the volume. It's not kind, it's degree, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a significant, and so when HQs come into these affiliates, I don't know, man. I just think there has to be some kind, if you're going to have these competitions, and that's going to continue to be your main kind of source of getting new people to discover CrossFit, these things have to have some congruence. Like what we're doing in the affiliate has to be reflected at the games. And what you should not be saying is that we're doing something totally different. It should be more that we're just doing it at a different level.
Yeah.
But we're after the same type of fitness. And that's just not happening. Like, that has never been the case, and it causes people to have to say these are two separate things.
Yeah.
They really shouldn't be. It's like, let's test fitness. Now the programmers have guardrails. Hey, I can only really, I need to come up with something. I have to be creative enough to come up with something in the 0 to 15, 20-second time domain. Well, that's a really tight constraint.
Yeah.
So let's do it, right? I have to do something in 0 to 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes, right? What do I do there? Hey, if you say I can go from 0 to 3 hours, I can beat you to death. I can beat you to death.
I think in one of the Fittest on Earth documentaries, there is one of the opening things. I forget one of the big heads in CrossFit that say it, where what we do at the games or what we test at the games is not what happens at the affiliate level.
Why are you?
I vaguely remember something along those lines being said.
And that just, to me, is like, you're failing. You're failing a way to market this to people who really need it.
Right. Or call it what it is. How you used to say, if we're not following this, then don't say that's what it is at its foundation. Say we're endurance athletes that occasionally lift barbells.
Right. Exactly. And then I would say you shouldn't call it CrossFit either.
Right.
Right.
EnduraFit.
Whatever it is. Like, so, sell the business. And, and I don't know. But all I can say is, like, I would, if you're an affiliate owner, if I was an affiliate owner, I would say this, and I know everything I know. I would really like double down on the What is Fitness article and try to train people coming into my building for that pursuit of that fitness. Because I'm seeing it. Like, I have 2 elderly parents who I can see they needed that. They didn't need one or the other. They needed both to an equal degree. My parents were athletes, right? So that's what I would be doing.
I had a member come up to me the other day and say, "Why don't we train more bicep curls?" Literally, that's what he said to me. And he's like, "I know we do pull-ups and all that, but aren't the biceps important?" And this is honest to God true. I handed him the What is Fitness article. I had it in my bag. I said, "Take this, go home, read it, and then you can come back to me and you can let me know if you still think you need bicep curls."
Right. Now, I would say I have listen, if bicep curls help, put them in. Like
Right, time and
everything-
place.
Right, time and place. Everything is on the board.
We're not supersetting bicep curls and tricep extensions.
So I think what we have is a better. So if you're looking to get big biceps, okay. But you could do that at the global gym.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
there's a place for that. You can do that at home. Buy some, there's nothing wrong with big biceps. If you're looking for fitness, we got better ways to do it than bicep curls.
Right.
Glassman had a thing where he talked about functional fitness, right? And he always used the dumbbell flies, and he would do this.
Is that in the theoretical hierarchy of training, or what is fitness that he talks about? It's in one of them.
Well, I've seen him do it on video,
Okay.
so but he talks about, and it might have been in one of them.
It is.
He talks about dumbbell and that's not functional. And I have some issue with that. I'm like, anything the human body does can be functional. I don't think there's anything wrong with dumbbell flies, right? But is there a better way to do it? Is there a more efficient way to do it? Yeah, possibly.
Right.
And so you can't do everything. Let's do the things that are going to make the most difference to your health and fitness. Then I would probably say it's probably not dumbbell flies or bicep curls, right? Maybe pull-ups might be better, right? Maybe push-ups or kicking up to a wall. That's going to do, some work with your shoulders. So I again, I'm glad I'm not an affiliate owner because I think,
Damn.
that's no, really, because it's a hard job. It's a hard job. It's people. People are coming to you for something, and they want you to deliver, and in this space that's so, it's been around for years, but it blew up, at a certain point. It's still new. What you don't want is it to go by the wayside of a lot of what you would call fitness trends. Fitness is going to be here, box jumps are going to be here, squats are going to be here, but your methodology, you should protect it. And I would say that it has to be a cohesive, adherence to what it is. And then how do you distinguish yourself from High Rocks or Alpha Fit or Orange Theory or whatever? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think, at the affiliate level, you always need to be educating your clientele. This is what we're doing. This is how we're pursuing it. They want to ask you about bicep curls or when are we doing crunches, right? And every single time you have to say, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we're preparing you for. I don't care what anybody says outside of these walls. This is what we're doing. And it's not, I didn't just make this up. This is based on things that work, and pursue it like that. And emphasize that, because if you, listen, so I'm still imagining myself as the affiliate owner and I'm programming for that group of people. You're not preparing for the open, right? You're going to be probably worse at the open. If you want to prepare for the open, then go to Black Star. You know what I'm saying? That's a whole different kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which again, I think is from the HQ perspective that it's a fumble. These things should all kind of fit together. It's just that people aren't paying that close of attention and they just like to come and sweat and and hey man, the CrossFit Games is fun to pursue. It's fun to work at something and try to get better at it. It's just not, if I'm thinking of this as a business and methodology and coherence, it's just not doing it. And so you see a lot of problems come up that's the one thing that's consistent about CrossFit. It's like there are always problems.
Oh yeah, it feels like every 2-3 years there's a catastrophic thing at
Yeah,
the head. That is true.
There's always an issue. So
Where do we go from here?
if I were king of
Yes.
CrossFit,
Ben Taylor is CEO, judge, jury, and executioner.
well, here's what I would say. Should I say this?
Just say whatever you want. I know it's going to be a good answer.
It's nothing I've been saying this, man, for years and years. I just haven't said it publicly all the time, but you know, sometimes change is good, right? You may have created a thing, but you might not be the person to see it all the way through. You know, like I invest for people in companies, stocks, bonds, stuff like that. So every now and again, you change the CEO because oftentimes it's the founder that needs to go to get it to the next level, to keep it going, to keep it producing what it's producing. You know, you need a different type of talent. I think, you know, there was the pandemic years that a CrossFit had been at that spot where they needed a change at the top, and it was forced, and there was some change, but I don't think they're through that period yet.
Right.
There still needs to be, if you want it to grow, if that's the objective, yes, you still need some fresh perspectives in there. And you really do need to become more of an corporate organization, not just, you know, a small business
Sure.
that does something pretty cool. It's just, so, you know, I've seen people call for specific changes with specific people. I would agree with that, but that's not new for me. I've been saying this for years. People think it's because of an incident, and they don't realize, no, it's a pattern of behavior that led to that incident, that's what has to be removed.
You're so good at saying very clearly what you want to say without saying it. No, like you're good. I respect that entirely.
I don't,
you
you know,
exclude
it's
names.
not-
You're very
yeah.
good.
Because it's not like personal, man.
Right.
It's just,
Yeah.
if you can really like someone, but it doesn't, and they can really enjoy what they do and be passionate about it, but if there are aspects of it where that are required and they're not good at it, it has to be a change.
Right.
And it's just not personal. It's you know, I think some of these jobs of running that business have become more elaborate and bigger than the capability of the people in those positions. So change is not always bad, man. Change is good. And I would try to get the cohesion between what is CrossFit. Let's really define that. Okay, we're going to do it at every level. We're going to do it at the affiliate. We're going to do it at the games. We're going to get anybody who's using the CrossFit name and using and running their own, like the Legends competition, the Masters are coming out, I think this weekend.
Yeah, it is.
We want to see, does it meet that, you know, 10 and 3, you know, 10 physical skills and 3 energy systems? Is it varied? Great. You can put our name on it, you know. If CrossFit feels like we don't want you to do open water swims, you know, we've learned something from that, and from now on we don't want that, then, you know, I mean, you can run your own competition, but I think that's actually a good decision, you know, and people took exception to it. Some of the competitions have, well, we're not working with CrossFit anymore because we're so dedicated to swimming. You know, let's understand that, yeah, we can do other things.
Did somebody
man.
actually say that or
Yes.
no? What,
Yeah.
Wadapalooza?
The Lowlands.
Oh, okay.
in
Yeah,
Europe.
where does Wadapalooza stand in all this? Because swimming was always a part of theirs.
So I think Wadapalooza. Now I can't say. I could just say like I've
Right.
been getting it from social media. It looked like before CrossFit announced that Wadapalooza had said we're canceling all swimming events.
Okay.
Those things could have been connected though, right? It's just the timing
Sure.
of when we saw it. Who knows? But I've always felt swimming for these athletes in open water specifically, not necessarily the pool, was just like that was pushing too far.
Okay.
I have my college roommate. He does triathlons and he's 50 plus, right? How many meters do you swim a week? At least 20,000. Oh. The tip top CrossFit athlete who might swim does a fifth of that. And they just learned to swim probably.
Right.
They came from other backgrounds. Like you see the people who have so many hours and years of swimming under their belt do well in the swimming event. You're just kind of doing it a little bit because you have other stuff to worry about. You got to do your muscle ups and your handstand walks and your rowing and then to put you in that environment where so many things can go wrong. I never understood how is no one else like seeing this?
Right.
That this is, you can test fitness probably better at much less risk with other types of things. You don't have to swim.
Yeah.
And it's just this, we're going to double down on it. We're going to do Murph in the hot sun, and we're going to have people get heat stroke, the best athletes we have, and then people are going to complain, and we're going to say, you know what? Know what we're going to do as a response? We're going to do it again next year. So to me, that is not a person who, or someone who has that sentiment. I wouldn't want them to be in a position of authority doing these types of events. I wouldn't want someone to, if I say, hey, you didn't have a map for the best guy to do this fall, this way or that way, it could have been much more serious. And you tell me, well, he shouldn't have climbed the rope in the first place. That's not, no, that guy, that's an athlete. He's going to, tell him to run through that wall. He's going to do it. But somehow you have to have it be safe. You know what I mean? Have it be a styrofoam wall or whatever. It's your responsibility as the organizer to put that mat there. So I would just like to see a cohesion between the games, what you teach in the seminars, to what you teach in the affiliate, and there's no space between those things. It's just degree, not kind, right? Like we're not doing something totally different.
Yeah.
We're just doing it at a different level, and for everyone to be able to say that. So last point there. You ask someone, like, what's a Big Mac? They might be able to tell you 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, right? I don't work for McDonald's. Why should I know that? Why? Because they have a cohesive branding,
Right.
that everyone knows what you're going to get at McDonald's. I want to know what I'm going to get at a CrossFit affiliate. If I ask you what is fitness, you should be able to say. You know what I mean? It was a cop-out when they were saying, oh, you just have to have them come try it. Like, you should have every member be able to say 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese. Like, this is what's going to happen when you walk into one of these places. Top to bottom, man. So if I'm Don Fall,
Yeah, downfall.
that's what I'm doing. If you see this, Don, that's the camera. Hire me, man. Like, we can make this thing go. I'm telling you. So,
All right, Ben. Well,
Great.
you got anything else you want to add?
sure. No,
All right. Well, thank you for doing this.
problem.
You're always a mentor. I always take everything to heart that you say, and I appreciate you sharing your time with us. So hopefully everyone else does as
hey,
well.
this was fun, man.
Yeah. Should do it again
right.
sometime.
Okay.
And go down another rabbit hole. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll catch you next time.